So, welcome to the Alchemy of the Soul podcast. I'm here with Emily Blefeld. She is, well, actually, it's so rich, all that you do and share. So, can I ask you to share some of that with your introduction?
Sure. I am the co-founder of Seeing with Your Heart, and I'm a psychotherapist and systemic family constellations facilitator and trainer. Also trained in energy medicine and synergy of sound healing. And I love to find ways of weaving the various different modalities into this kind of tapestry of the chorus of consciousness that Systemic Family Constellations allows the creative visionary to weave.
Wow. Wow. I just have to say I love the way you articulate.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, and so the intention here, this is a brief interview, and one of the intentions is to be speaking to those that are already familiar with this work, that we're alleviated of the responsibility to try to explain constellations from square one, because you should really go to many constellations to check them out, to really get a feel for it, because there's a lot of it that is beyond words.
Yeah.
But for what we can put words to today, the thing that I am really excited to share with people is how much richness I've received and the expanded awareness of the dynamics that I experience in family constellations and how they help me to navigate the constellation of my life in real time. Mm-hmm. And so for myself and also for others. And so that is, what's your experience of that?
I would say I came to the work, originally I worked with entrepreneurs and visionaries and artists who had these creative projects, like incredibly unique creative projects. Mm-hmm. And they were so excited to bring them out into the world, and oftentimes ended up in my practice because they would get stuck, often at the point when they were the most passionate. Like, I know I want to give everything to writing, and then I sit down to write and I can't get my pen to the paper. Or I'm, developing a wellness center, and when I set up the wellness center, all of these like politics are happening in the community, and I can't ever actually get started to bring my services forward. So that was my practice at the time. And I found that although the therapy and the coaching was effective, people were productive and successful, quote unquote, in the world on the outside, on the inside there was this like hunger for a deeper sense of meaning and deeper connection to people, and I find that's true for many creators, is that we, and many of the people that come to this work, we are typically the folks that feel deeply, sense widely, and want to make something new together. And when we get our hands in the dirt and we start to kind of bring our passions into form, we meet our family. Like wherever we are, whatever project we think we're kind of going to create something new, and then all of a sudden we are literally sitting at our kitchen table with our mom and our dad and our grandparents and great-grandparents, and we have this feeling that either our work isn't being received or understood, our truths don't quite have the support they need, our funding isn't there, whatever that is, and it's this sense that like I don't have what I need to thrive. And constellations were just this incredible gift for a modality to be able to help people look and constellate their projects, like constellate their creative projects and their initiatives, constellate some of the community and the collaborations and the organizational work that they were doing, as well as, for me, what got me into the work is to just access the depth of their own intuitive knowing, their sovereignty, that channel of consciousness that, wakes you in the night and says, there's more for life. To be able to have a deeper relationship with that.
Wow. Yeah, the way I translate that for myself that you're sharing is that our soul wants two things. Our soul wants that deep connection with our ancestors and our family and to belong.
Right.
And we also want more than anything to explore our freedom to create and do life as we choose. And for me, a constellation is where do those two things exist in the same place? And they can. Yeah.
Right, and our soul is often free of the family in some way. It has this like liberated quality.
Right.
That it is trained because it's living inside your body, which belongs on to this family system and the architecture of the family system. But the soul came with a deeper expression, and it actually needs the collaboration of your family wisdom and your movement forward.
Yeah, together. Yeah. Again, I love the way you articulate. So is there more on that? Or can we dive into the next question?
What else would there be on that? I think I would say, I think I could say two different things that would be a little bit more. Yeah. When I say the soul is free of the family, the soul is this direct portal to your intuitive channel. And so if you want to be able to listen to the whispers of the universe, to hear the frequencies and the sound codes that like ushered you into form, and to be able to vibrationally infuse your initiatives with a unified pulse. And it's the pulse of creation. If you think about the pulse of creation, we all come from this original pulse, this original sound. And what we create in the world can manifest and flourish if it's offered that same liberatory vibration. And our soul is kind of the conduit that can usher that through our hands and through our hearts and through lovemaking, that we can like create new form and bring it into the world. And what tends to dim the light of our soul is our unconscious inherited conditioning that keeps us from infusing those initiatives, those projects, those children, our relationships, our work in the world. Like what keeps us from giving it all of our light is often this sense that like we've merged on some level, we've merged with our parents or grandparents, traumatized parts or traumatized stories. You came into the world this bright form with a vibrational remembrance of your, infinite being. And then you're met with a message, quiet down a little bit, or I can't quite hold you. I can't pick you up and take you to my chest and my breath. You're not safe. You're not held. You're not understood. There's some part of you that doesn't make sense to us. You don't belong here. Whatever that story is, we can tend to just start to find, how am I going to survive this algorithm? You might have been born into the world and had families that like totally supported you and totally nurtured you. And on some level, that has its pros and cons too, because when you're cared for and given this incredible cushy nest, how do you ever fly? Is there an opportunity to actually take flight? And are you always kind of looking for the nest to be made for you somewhere else? So there's both. But most humans come into the world wanting to be held, wanting to be loved, wanting to be nurtured and cared for. And when you don't receive that, you'll find yourself beginning to retreat into the family memory field. And you'll turn around and you'll look for, what is it that they need to be able to love me? How can I tend their shame? How can I tend their sorrow? How can I turn my light and give all of my soul to this field behind me and fill it, like fill the void of that space? And in some ways, we employ the light of our soul to tend the shadows of the hidden architecture of our family system. And then we find ourselves into a constellations workshop or a therapy office with this intention to bring our work forward or our projects forward or our dreams forward, but we find ourselves living in the merged part or inherited trauma of that space. And you kind of have to collect, like through the back doors and the caverns of your heart, collect your consciousness and your focus and your energy field and like direct that focus forward. But it doesn't work naturally. necessarily doesn't like work really easily to just say, okay, now I'm going to start focusing on my own life. That's it. Now it's time to it's all about me now, because you'll actually find that person, that ancestor back here. You might even move miles and miles and miles away from your family, disconnect, get estranged, whatever you need to do to get that sense of freedom. And then wherever you are, there they are. The same story shows up in your personal and intimate relationships, or the groups you're inside of. And there's an invitation always to actually find the energy of your soul and return it to your body. And to do that, Systemic Family Constellations, I think, is a form of family soul retrieval. Mm-hmm. Because the people that say yes to this work you are not just an ordinary person. You're extraordinary.
It's usually the black sheep or the rainbow sheep, as I like to say.
Yes, the rainbow sheep. Mm-hmm. You have an extraordinary quality because you have an intention. Yeah. Your soul came with an intention. And it found its way into a family field. And you said to that family field, we are going to alchemize. We're going to alchemize generationally. And then we're going to create new legacy together. And I'm going to be the way shower of that legacy. And that sounds like, for advanced facilitators, you might say that sounds too big. But the truth is, the one who's willing to look and offer the light of their soul to some of the deepest traumas of their lineage and say, I see you, I love you, I'll hold you in my heart, I'll offer so much of my life force to you that I'll even make all my projects about you. On some level, everything that's in front of you is often an offering to what was lost, excluded, exiled. And in your seeking constantly to make visible what was made invisible, we actually are trying to reconcile the family soul as a way of returning our own soul to the gift of this tremendous life. So I think that's the first thing I would say is first, just get to know your family soul. Get to look into the eyes of your mother or your father, your egg donor or sperm donor, whether you know who they are or not. Look into the eyes and the consciousness of them and access the memory of their soul, because you're collaborating on a soul level with these beings that may have behaviors and stories and traumas and celebrations and skills, and yet together we can find our way into healthy form. And from there, if you can retrieve the family soul and retrieve your soul, you can offer the soul of your work and the soul of our future, the light that you came here to bring. And it is an ancestral collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to say hallelujah. Yeah, I like to say to be present with what you want to create and that you are creating.
Yeah.
It's also, that happens only as quickly as you are present with what is.
Yeah.
So.
And your birth story affects that. How were you born into the world? What's the story of your arrival?
Yeah.
And how do you birth? The new. My mother tells this story. She had 2 little boys, and she tells the story that she wanted a little girl so bad, and she painted the nursery pink and was knew I was a girl and was so excited that I was a girl and just had this knowing inside of her. And my head came out of her, and the doctor said, oh, looks like a beautiful baby boy. We will know for sure in just one more push. And my mom clamped down and had a moment of freeze.
I sent it
wait,
back.
What? Yeah, exactly, I'm not sure. And then just had to remind herself, I know. And then, out I come and, oh, it's a beautiful baby girl. But I would say when I birth projects or initiatives, or when I step into a new chapter of my life, it'll crown, its head comes out, and I can feel myself go, I don't know. Do I really want to do that? Wow. I'm not sure I'm going to love this. Yeah. Is this this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. Wait a minute, and you can feel the fractal pattern of even how we create is connected to our creators and connected to the moment and the constellation of our life. And this is true for people that have, doctors or midwives or dynamics of, challenging labor or delivery. The constellation of your natal chart is there in the way, like how we were created is often how we create. How we were loved is often how we make love. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, next question.
Okay.
I mean, that's
Great.
the
I'm ready.
richness. I'm just like marinating in that. People that facilitate this work, learning to facilitate this work, or have been facilitating it for a long time, what is it that you would most like someone that facilitates this work to know, to embody, to intend, and how they hold space for it?
One of the things I am the most passionate about is the idea that this is not in the mind. This is not just pictures in the mind. You are working with the dead. You have ancestors in the room with you, sitting right next to your clients. And when you facilitate, it's important to look into the eyes of those ancestors and recognize they are co-facilitating with you. They arrived probably before your client arrived in your field. We are part of the system when we facilitate. So when we're hired to do a constellation, somebody says, yes, I would like a constellation, even if it's happening in your living room. You're like hanging out and your friend says, I think I would like a constellation, and then it just quote unquote pops up. Even if it's that kind of a moment, it was arranged well before you knew it. So that's the first thing, is that you are being hired and employed by the ancestral field, and they have done a lot to orchestrate the synchronicities that have led that person to be in your space. And you're a part of the system simply when you begin to facilitate in the system. So to pretend that we are not a part of the system is sort of to deny the energetic collaboration that you're having with that amazing field of extraordinary resource. So no matter the story, whether it's murder or rape or some of the deepest traumas in human history, no matter the story, that family is a resource. And it is our work to help to not only liberate the living, but to also liberate the dead. That they are here working together, and their freedom is as dependent on our freedom is as dependent on their freedom, and their freedom is as dependent on our freedom. Like, it's an exchange. It's relational. I remember when I did my first constellation, I was with Ed Lynch. He was one of the early teachers of constellation work.
The OGs.
Yeah, I loved him. And he just passed this past year. I can feel my emotion come up as I say that. It's just, the people that love Ed know what a dear heart he was. And I had not seen a group constellation. I had only seen one-to-one constellations. I probably had seen over 100 one-to-one constellations before I saw my first group constellation. Because I was a therapist, so I was being trained therapeutically. And I didn't understand what was happening, because a woman, I don't know how long, I'll try to make it shorter. This woman came in, sat down next to Ed, and he set up the client seat. And Ed said, sit here, tell me what you want to work on. And she said, I'm just full of sadness. And I'm just so full of sadness. And so he set up a representative for her sadness, and then a representative for her. And she was sitting there with her hands like this in her lap, and kind of like this. And then she was going like this. She just kind of had her hands like this. I don't know if the camera can see, but it's kind of like this. And she was just talking the whole time with Ed with her hands in this way. And I saw the ancestor of a woman standing right there in front of her, just like just this ghost right in front of Ed and her, walking closer and closer to the woman. And then they put in a rep for the first the sadness, And then she said, and then the rep started to cry, and she said, I just lost my sister. And then she asked the person asked them to represent the sister, and the sister stood up, and the woman got up from her chair, and she moved across the floor, and she stood right in the spot where the ancestor was standing. And it was my first time seeing what representatives can do. Like, I'd only seen one-to-one constellating, which didn't have that. Yeah. And so to watch a human being offer themselves to the field of the ancestor and to click in completely. And the woman actually slowly moved, just as the ancestor was, slowly moved towards the woman in the chair. And they took hands. She was reaching for her sister, just going like this, without knowing that her sister energetically was right there. And I have I had the gift of sight as a child, and then it came back through constellation work. So that's a whole nother story, Sunny. But
I love it.
Anyway, she came right in, they kind of held each other's hands. And it was a way for me of witnessing the power that you can offer your body to a ghost who doesn't have closure. And in some ways, what I saw was that sadness was her sister's grief, not the client's grief necessarily. It was the sister's grief over not being able to say goodbye, not having closure with her living sister. And when they released the embrace and Ed offers profound sentences, she turned, the ancestor, the new ancestor, turned and looked at the sadness and hugged the sadness. And the sadness said, I feel like joy now. It's like, I'm her joy. And they kind of embraced and sort of danced and moved out of the room. And the woman said, I saw her a few days afterwards, and she said, I just feel like it's this weight that just lifted off me. And I think I've been carrying her need for a final hug or her need for closure with me. And I just feel now we can have a new relationship. And I just, so for me, I name that because sometimes we set up representatives with an intention to fix the living or support the picture and get the story right. And I would say, dare to sense the field of the dead that are in the room with you, that are actually just looking for living voices and looking for a body to express through and are looking to find their way to completion.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want facilitators to know this too.
It's important, right?
Really good to hear you say it.
Yeah, sometimes you have to ask, who is my client here? Who is that constellation really for? Yeah. It is for the living, to live free of that grief, but in some ways, that was her sister's constellation. Wow. Yeah.
So on that note, what was coming up for me when you were speaking about that is that there are many that might be frightened when they talk about spirits or ghosts.
Yes.
And it's almost like our culture has trained us to do that with ghosts and goblins and Halloween around that time where the veil is the thinnest, and yet in Mexico they use that opportunity to connect with their ancestors because the veil is thin. And so it comes down to intention, because I remember when I used to do medicines in high school without intention, I could have bad experiences. But when I did medicine ceremonies where there's this container of intention, it gave an opportunity for me to experience the realms of my consciousness in a way that I was directing and choosing.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that is the element that really helps us to navigate these realms in a way of our choice and in a way that is safe. And so I wanted to ask you, because I know that you use intention in the way you facilitate.
Yes.
So I wanted to kind of
get a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would say we always start with an intention, because I find an intention guides us to turn our consciousness and our orientation towards life. It always, intention moves life forward. And you ground in, to be totally direct, you can walk into a room of a constellation workshop and everyone's come there for some reason.
Right.
And there's 10 constellations, 15 constellations in the room. And if you've seen a constellation, you know that that's like many representatives. So it's a very crowded room when you first begin. And I think one of the best energetic hygiene techniques you could live by is to live with intention. Like wake up in the morning and have an intention for your day. Have an intention when you go into any group. In this moment, I mean, I asked Sunny, what's your intention? Because I want to engage with you in a way where we are in shared consent and collaboration around supporting movement towards life and the movement of the advanced facilitators that are watching this, that they can feel a deeper connection to the work. I find when you have intention, you're less vulnerable for energetic hijacking. You are less vulnerable for lower vibrational frequency that may decide to lodge itself in the aspects of your own light. I include synergy of sound and vibration practices because I find if you literally hold an intention of joy or love or compassion, and you ring a singing bowl in the midst of a constellations workshop, it can be subtle, just a sound. It can interrupt discordant frequencies that may be trying to organize the room in a way that is not in service of the client's intention. So I like to ask the client, what is your intention? And if they say, I want to feel a deeper expression of self, or I want to, I want to be able to love more, then I know that's their intention. And I will literally drum occasionally to connect to the pulse of the earth with that intention. I will ring the bowl with that intention to just bring any distraction or any energies that are maybe not in a benevolent space just into formation, into the spiral of now and into presence. So sound tools are always supportive. I think intention's supportive, and honestly, the facilitator being in healthy relationship with their own capacity for humility.
Yes.
It's humbling to do this work. You have to let go of. You have to have an ego because you need to be charismatic and in some ways engaging and create a sense of healthy container for people to, some humor, some joy. It doesn't have to be so heavy, So there's ego involved in that a little bit. But for the most part, can we be phenomenological? Can we let go? Can we surrender to the mystery that is going to have its way with us? There's always a moment in a constellation where you think, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what to do next.
Every time.
And that's the genius moment. I mean, that is the moment when you have met the place in the constellation where the magic happens. And it requires a willingness to hold connection to the client's intention and your own intention for doing the work, for you to be able to collaborate with the energies that arrive in that time to help guide us into something that we don't know. We know that we don't know, and we're in for it.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm in for the I don't know that I don't know field, It's like, let's see what happens.
My intention is to have a girl. I'm okay with if it's a girl or a boy.
Right.
I trust.
Right.
And
yes, exactly.
something like that.
Yeah, a little bit of the free fall into the wider, place. And for those that are watching and have questions about the whole ghost comment, a lot of people can do constellations. Like, I work with organizations. We don't set up ancestors at all. We set up the HR department, and we set up the creativity department, and all the different the therapists in relationship to the director and relation these. You can work with parts. It isn't always lineage, but I would say an intention has a lineage. So when somebody contacts me and says, I would like to look at this and I'd like to work on this, and this is the issue that we're facing, and here's what my desire is, typically the issue is fractal. And so I'm always interested in the consciousness of where that issue came from, its repetition, even if I'm not working with ancestors, even if it's just, I call it first dimension, just things you can point to and touch. There's always a field of where that question came from, and it's helpful to be willing to quest the chorus of the consciousness, even if you're not going to be directly in relationship to ancestral fields. learn about the lineage of the issue and the lineage of the intention. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, the unseen is quite real.
Yeah.
I mean,
but energetic hygiene is we are naturally like nature roots and it ascends to the sun. So we are naturally intended to be healthy. And so the more that we can live the natural laws, we'll be in good shape.
Thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you for doing this. I'm just so grateful that you are offering a podcast to be able to support those of us that are doing the work, to create community, shared voices, shared language. Yes. I mean, this is how we connect across worlds and cultures. And one of my deepest intentions is to understand how constellation work is being used in response and in relation with everything that's happening in all the different continents, with the waters and the earth. And so to have a place where you're bringing our voices, I'm just so grateful to be a part of that alchemy. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you for acknowledging that. And so there's something I'd like to share on that, is that I feel like, the original roots of this work are in African shamanism. Because Bert went over to convert the Zulu tribe to Catholicism, and they converted him to African shamanism, basically. That's the long story short. And so there are many in the psychotherapy realms that offer this work that in a way that is digestible for the Western culture. And they try to sterilize it and kind of, oh, this isn't shamanism, this isn't spirits, there's no ghosts here. And it's like, actually, there is, because the unseen world is real. And, if you want to be an atheist and, believe that there's nothing after death, then you can do that. But, it's almost like oil and water to me as far as this work and having that mindset. And so what I kind of want to say to facilitators is just be you and your own personal expression. And if it is the sterile Western way, then do that too, because everything in this universe is in relationship with everything else, and that's what we're really exploring, is those relationships. And there are things that are non-physical as well, like love, consciousness. Try to measure that, how many pounds of consciousness is in the room, but it's there. And so is the love, and so is the spirits.
I trained with an atheist, and
I
literally wanted to be trained by one of the best facilitators, and she happens to be an atheist.
Wow.
And she's...
Thank God I'm atheist.
She's amazing. She was amazing, and her work was amazing. Her capacity to work with language and offer a sentence that ripples through the generations and ripples forward. Wow. And so I find, even though there was a different philosophy around the consciousness that was in the space, we shared, constellations offered a shared language.
It still works.
And she loved me, I loved her, it worked out.
Wow.
We can actually hold different beliefs and still touch each other's soul in the heart of this work. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, bring whatever your belief system is, bring it, know it has a place in the fabric of things.
Fair. Yes.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
So in closing, so what is your website?
It's seeingwithyourheart.com. I'm a co-founder with Dan Cohen. We offer the alchemical Family Constellations training and facilitator certification if you're interested in learning psychic perception, alchemy, sound healing and tools, and kind of the more esoteric flavor of systemic constellation facilitation. We're also psychotherapists and psychologists who have developed thriving. We have a real focus on supporting people in developing, thriving practices so that they can make this their full-time job. So if you're interested, come check us out. We also teach courses on science, myth, and magic, and generational alchemy, and all kinds of fun things.
The best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Wow. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here.